Welsing. Dr. Welsing, welcome back to WOL Radio.
Oh, good morning, Carl, and guest and Brother Tariq. I'm glad to be with you this morning.
Right. You told us yesterday that we need a new black attitude, a new mindset, because, we were discussing about whether or not we could actually have a successful boycott of the Christmas season or Thanksgiving or any of these other created holidays. What do you mean when you say we need a new black attitude, a new mindset?
Well, a new mindset, do you see, as opposed to saying we can't do this and we won't do that. Do you see, we have to, I believe, be determined that we are going to achieve the goal objectives that we have in mind. My view of the goal objective is that we, in the words of Neely Fuller Jr., that we want to replace an unjust system that exists of racism, white supremacy, with a system of justice. Justice meaning that no one is mistreated, no one is allowed to be mistreated, and those who need the most help get the most help. Do you see now? Let
me interrupt you and ask you, are we in the position to make that change?
Well, if we aren't, we might as well consign ourselves to genocide. You see, but I believe that in science, any problem that you are able to perceive, that if you put your mind to analyzing the problem, then you take the position that it can be solved. In much the same way that some people who classify themselves as white decided they wanted to go to the moon or go to Mars or go to any other planet and give themselves a period of time to get it done, and they do it. And so we certainly should have the attitude that what it is that we put our minds to doing, that we can do. Now, when I say we, that just means whosoever will. Doesn't mean that everybody, I mean, you had people who were saying at the time that, I believe it was President Kennedy, who said that we're going to go to the moon and we're going to take that on, and people were saying there would be people that can't be done, it can't happen, it'll never happen. And the people who said, fine, the scientists who said, well, we'll take it on. And then, the engineers who study, there are people who were saying, man can't fly. Nobody can fly. Birds fly.
Right, you got some people right now, Dr. Welsing, don't believe that the men actually set foot on the moon. I remember when it happened, everybody's looking up to the sky and says, we can't see those folks. What are you talking about? Everybody thought it was they're pulling the wool over our eyes.
Well, again, people have a lot of opinions, and people can say many things. But what I'm interested in is the reality that we as black people have been in a situation of oppression for the last 500 years.
All right, hold that thought right there, and we just get back on the oppression, and hopefully you'll give us a roadmap out of that oppression. Folks, you too can get in on the discussion with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing at 12 minutes after the hour. Join us. Just call us at 800-450-7876. Again, that's 800-450-7876. Your calls after this traffic report on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning. This update brought to you by Food Lion. Right now, as you're making your way around the Beltway through Greenbelt and getting around to the BW Parkway, you'll find all your lanes open, everything running up to speed southbound on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway from the Beltway down to the 50 interchange and New York Avenue. And it's where you're going to find just some brief delays from 202 getting to New York Avenue, then crossing Route 50 as you make your way past Eastern Avenue to Benning Road. A little bit of a building volume there, and getting to East Capitol Street as well. Now, passing Pennsylvania Avenue, that's where it pretty much starts to break up. Getting to the 11th Street Bridge, to and across the 11th Street Bridge, you're good to go across the westbound side of the Southeast-Southwest Freeway. Eastbound did have accident activity just after the 3rd Street Tunnel exit. That now completely cleared away, but the delays remain. Delays beginning at 110 on 395 northbound, continuing to and across the 14th Street Bridge and the Case Bridge, getting past the 3rd Street Tunnel. That's when it starts to break up, and you're good to go to the 11th Street Bridge and crossing the Anacostia. Find bushels of savings at your local Food Lion with this week's MVP hot sales. Get Hot House tomatoes, only 99 cents a pound, and select varieties of Cheetos or Fritos corn chips. Buy one, get one free. Limit 2 at Food Lion. Washington weather today, not too bad. 80s is what we can expect for a high under sunny skies. Light breeze going on. Tonight, lows dipping into the 60s. Good sleeping weather. Thursday and Friday as well. Highs both days in the low to mid 80s. Lows both days in the 60s in the city. Upper 50s in the woods. Now 68 degrees in Washington. And I'm Jim Lavin on 1450 AM WOL, where information is power.
For the 5 million Americans living with Alzheimer's and the millions more who feel its effects, let's walk together to make an even bigger impact and end Alzheimer's for good. Walk with us this fall in D.C. and Prince George's County. Sign up today at alz.org/walk.
Harbor Point Wealth Management assists retirees and pre-retirees in the creation of retirement strategies utilizing insurance products that provide guarantees backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. We are not affiliated with the U.S. government or any governmental agency.
Are you confident that you won't outlive your savings during retirement? Studies have shown that outliving their money in retirement is the #1 concern of most retirees. Karen Scott Mims, ESQ of Harbor Point Wealth Management, can help. She can offer a retirement income analysis that will answer your questions about retirement, including, will I have enough money to last? Will my spouse have enough money if I pass away? What rate of return will I need to average to avoid running low on money? And what impact would another downturn have on my retirement income? To get your income analysis, call Karen today, 866-621-6660 to receive your complimentary retirement income analysis. Call today, 866-621-6660.
Hi, this is Karen Scott Mims. If you're interested in tax-efficient retirement planning, give us a call at 866-621-6660.
Remember when a small business needed a landline? Today, the world is your office with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. On the road, at the beach, or at home, Grasshopper helps you grow your business with all the features of a business phone system and the freedom of a cell phone. Features include multiple extensions for your team, calls forwarded to your mobile phones, voicemails transcribed and emailed, and so much more. See how it works at grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system.
Did you know when you donate a kidney, you give the gift of life?
I had no idea you could donate an organ while you were still alive. If I'm born with 2 healthy kidneys but only need one, I'd do it again.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
Real Talk Radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. 16 after the hour, one of our top scholars with us live on the radio this morning, Dr. Francis Quest Welsing. Most of you know her from the ISIS papers, The Keys to the Colors. That's the title of her best-selling book. You know, call your friend anywhere around the world and tell them they can listen to WOLDCnews.com. That's WOLDCnews.com. Dr. Welsing, you talked about where we've been oppressed, and we've been in this stage of oppression for quite some while. Is there a roadmap for us to get out of this oppression?
Well, Carl, I think that what is important and really the value of your show is that you have a lot of different guests on, and different guests have different points of view, and this is important. And audiences are able to, listen to everybody, but the challenge is for them to do their thinking about what they have heard and relate it to whatever they think the problem is. You see, but you have different voices, different opinions, different thoughts, and this is good and this is important why you have your show. My particular point of view and school of thought is that the problem is the system of racism, white supremacy. And I came to that thinking because when I was training as a psychiatrist, I had the question, what is making black people mentally ill? The program that I was trained in, psychiatry has never been concerned about what is making black people mentally ill. But I'm a third-generation black physician, and when I started training in psychiatry, even though the program I was in at St. Elizabeth's Hospital, Washington, D.C., they were training the psychiatrists that black people didn't have the intelligence to benefit from psychotherapy, and that the best treatment for black people was medication. Psychiatry is almost in that same position all these many years later. But I was determined to find out what is making black people mentally ill. That was my start point from science raises questions, and people who are using science will try to then move from question to analysis. So I was looking for what is racism beyond. I used to think I was a Marxist. I used to think that racism and the problem of black people could be resolved. That was when I was 16 to 20-something, starting when I was an undergrad. And then I found, no, this doesn't provide the answers that I was looking for. Making a long story short, when I was training in psychiatry and happened to encounter Neely Fuller, who had been looking at the question from his vantage point, and he came up in the 1950s with racism is a total system structure that covers economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, all of the areas of people activity, and that this activity was for maintaining the power equation of white power over non-white powerlessness. And so I just started thinking from my training background as a physician and in science, and thinking, well, why would they do this? What would be the necessity for a group of people of a particular genetic pattern? Why would they come up with an idea that it would be necessary for them to control all of the people that they felt were unlike them, specifically in terms of skin coloration? And so then I started thinking about the kinds of things that people who classify themselves as white, the kinds of things that they would constantly talk about. And they constantly would talk about black being genetically inferior to themselves, and they would refer to people of color as minorities. And I thought, well, after you're in school long enough and have studied long enough and read enough books, in this particular system and culture, you realize that people who classify themselves as white are a tiny minority. They are a tiny, tiny minority of people on this planet. If you put all the people who classify themselves together, they're a tiny minority. The people who have skin coloration are the overwhelming majority, 9/10 of the people on the planet. And instead of people of color being genetically inferior, the people of color that are the norm for humanity, we can call that word Humanity, people with color as opposed to simply mankind, people maybe without skin coloration, without hue, but that the people with skin coloration are genetically dominant. And when I was in my apartment right here in Washington, D.C., 743 Fairmont Street, in the 1960s, late. I said, I've got it. Now I can understand racism, white supremacy. The position that people who classified themselves as white, once they circumnavigated the planet in the 15th century, beginning with Columbus, and they found out that indeed everywhere they landed on the planet, there were colored people. The world was filled with colored people. The one isolated area where there were white people was an area called Europe. But if the men had sexual relations, got off those boats, and had sexual relations with the women of color, and they stayed around 9 months, they found out that white disappeared. That was an absolute fact. Today, as 500 years ago. And they found out that they could genetically disappear, even though they did not necessarily use the term of genetic disappearance, but white disappeared. And they decided they didn't want white to disappear. Like you can, anybody in the listening audience can go around, whether they are in Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, England, France, any place on the planet, Australia, where people classify themselves as white, and do a survey of 10,000 people and ask them, do they want their children to be colored? Do they want their grandchildren to be colored? Do they want their great-grandchildren to be colored? Do they want their great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren to be colored?
Right.
And
hold that thought right there,
say
Doc.
no.
Yeah, the answer would be no. Hold that thought right there. We've got to step aside for a couple of announcements. We've got some people who want to speak to you. Folks, you too can join the dialogue with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, 25 after the hour. Take your calls at 800-450-7876. Again, it's 800-450-7876. Your calls next as the big show rolls on from 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Looking for a caterer to cater your next event? One that's professional, prepares great tasting food, provides a professional staff, and will create tailor-made menus and services to fit your needs and budget, and so much more? Then you have to call A Touch of Class Caterers at 301-449-2082. For 18 years, A Touch of Class has been one of the Washington metropolitan area's premier caterers, providing you nothing but the best for your next event. So whether it's a wedding, rehearsal dinner, church function, repast celebration, or just a private dinner for two, and you want a little more class and elegance to make the day even more special, call A Touch of Class Caterers today at 301-449-2082 and let them take care of the intimate details. That's A Touch of Class Caterers, ready to handle your next event with a touch of class and elegance. Call them today, 301-449-2082, or log on to www.we-cater-2u.com.
Those of us who were around in the 50s and 60s struggling, many of us have gotten tired, and we let the enemy have his way. Well, I did my best, they'll say, and you all take it now. I'm just going to sit down and relax or retire. I have never seen a lion retire from being a lion. I may not bite as hard as I used to, but I can still bite.
Don't miss the Farrakhan Speaks broadcast this and every Sunday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. right here on WOL 1450 a.m., where information is power. That's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the air this Sunday at 8 a.m. If you missed last Sunday's message, you have to hear him this Sunday. Don't miss it.
Real Real talk radio in the AM.
The #1 morning show. #1 on everybody list.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. And our guest, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, 800-450-7876, line 2. Charles in D.C. has a question for you, Dr. Welsing. Charles?
Yes. Good morning. Thanks for taking my call, Carl. And Dr. Welsing, it is an honor to talk to you. I just want to go to the new mindset and make a couple points on that. I agree there is the need for a new mindset, but I think we have to look at the need versus the reality, because in getting a new mindset, you actually have to have a new mindset. And I don't see any evidence of that. As I listen to radio and hear the announcements of all of the viewer parties for the season premiere of Empire, not only in this town, but across the country, and black folks prepared to go out and support foolishness, I ask, is that the reality of a new mindset? When I listen to black folks debating basically on which Democrat are we going to support next year, and we're not being political with our vote, I ask, is that a new mindset? So my question to you is, at one point in this system of white supremacy, we put up resistance. What incident has happened in the last 50 years where we've dropped resistance and seem to comply within this system?
Well, are you saying at what point do we indicate that we have resistance?
No, I'm saying what has happened to where we no longer resist, we seem to comply.
Well, see, I would say this, that we have gone through several phases, and the black people in this area of the world, the black people who were enslaved by people who classify themselves as white. And so we've gone through several phases, stages of analysis of what the problem exactly is. And our first phase was when we were enslaved, we thought if the chains are removed, everything is going to be fine. And then we had to go through the phase of finding the chains have been removed, but laws were put in place. And then people fought to get the laws changed and thinking that now everything is okay. And now we also have a black president, everything is going to be okay. Now, all of that is because at those phases, we didn't really understand what racism was. People were not focusing on racism as a system for white genetic survival in view of the fact that whites were a tiny minority on the entire planet and genetic recessive and therefore could be genetically annihilated. And so even though we went through the phase of black men being lynched and castrated, if they looked at a white female, people still did not have a definition or an analytical concept that we were dealing with a system for white genetic survival. And so we went through those phases and even getting to the point of having a black president. And from black people thinking now the laws have been changed and everything is fine. Well, the people who classify themselves as white, my definition says whether they are operating at conscious and or subconscious levels. They have a concept of what is necessitated for their genetic survival on this planet. And it was spelled out in terms of what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, where the young white man said, I have to kill you black men and women in your church because black men want to have sex with white women and you want to take over the planet or the country, and so therefore I have to kill you. and wrote a manifesto stating exactly what I have been saying racism, white supremacy is. Followed where the media followed up with Bill Cosby and the 100 white women he's supposed to have raped.
Exactly. Well, may I ask this, Dr. Welsing? Even within your practice, I would imagine when you diagnose a patient, you make certain recommendations that they must do. So my question to you is, when do we remove the mental aspects of slavery, the mental chains? Because, again, no one's forcing us to go out to these viewer parties. And as I mentioned to a friend, we'll get a greater attendance at these viewer parties than we will at a PTA meeting across the country. So at what point do we take responsibility and say we're going to remove the mental chains? We're going to do our part. And thank you for your time. I'll take your answer off the air.
Okay, I would answer in this way. Again, most people are not thinking about system of racism, white supremacy, and the system itself does everything to stop black people from thinking about racism. You know, they would go into you're playing the race card, or why do you always have to bring up race? Or when the black tennis player James Blake was knocked down in the street by a white police officer, I believe it was chief of police, said race had nothing to do with it. Just like race had nothing to do with all of the black people who were shot dead in the street. So the vast majority of black people at this point in time are still not focusing. They might use the word race, but they want to dismiss it as that being the problem, because it's very, very, very difficult to focus on the problem when people who classify themselves as white, the system of racism, white supremacy, it's like looking at a chessboard where the white side of the chessboard is in continuous play of offense-defense against the black side of the chessboard that plays defense-offense. Black people as a whole are not looking at a chessboard analogy of what actually is taking place. And so we're not seeing that every game. You see, when people who classify themselves as white, if they even wanted to think of themselves as being liberal. So, okay, some of us are going to vote for a black president. But once the black man got into the White House with his black family and black mother-in-law, I think that many people who classify themselves as white who might want to think of themselves as liberal said, oh, my God, what does this mean? A black man sitting in the most powerful seat in the world. And so they began to demean him and to degrade him, which is continuous to this very day, letting Secret Service be lax in really protecting him, because the president in his very person represents white genetic annihilation. His mother being white and his father being black.
All right, hold that thought right there, Dr. Welsing. We have a news report coming next, and we've got folks from Chicago, Charlotte, Silver Spring, L.A., North Carolina, all want to speak to you. Folks, you too can get in on the dialogue. Reach out to Dr. Welsing at 800-450-7876. When we come back, Dr. Welsing, because last caller Charles mentioned about the screening of the show Empire that's coming on there, because people are asking me, what's Dr. Welsing got with Empire? Why doesn't she like Empire? So if you can explain that to us, we really appreciate it, and we'll take your calls next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
This report brought to you by the American Association for Cancer Research, finding cures together. Please support cancer research by donating today at www.aacrfoundation.org. A man who shot and killed himself in Northern Virginia was the son of a former state senator. 36-year-old Todd Houck had a criminal past. He was the son of Ed Houck, who served Spotsylvania from 1984 through 2011.
Police say the younger Houck shot and killed a man yesterday morning in Caroline County, then kidnapped a woman and led police on a chase that ended with a crash and his suicide along I-95. Metro is anticipating crowded trains due to the papal visit and plans to provide rush-hour level service all day. Drivers are urged to avoid the district due to street closures and parking restrictions. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe calls Metro irresponsible for not having a permanent general manager after 9 months. McAuliffe says the lack of leadership is magnified by an expected strain on the transit system with the Pope in town. Some preschoolers are building a kitty-sized Pope-mobile.
The Washington Post reports that students at St. Jude Regional Catholic School in Rockville have appointed 4-year-old Maximiliano Hernandez as a Pope stand-in, who will drive a cozy coupe edition of the Pope-mobile in their own parade today. The preschoolers will try to follow the Pope's schedule and end up at the school auditorium where they can watch the Pontiff's midday prayer service at St. Matthew's Cathedral. I'm Tom Roberts.
Baltimore with a 4-1 win over Washington. Nats outfielder Bryce Harper says they can't worry about what the division-leading Mets are doing.
We just got to win. I mean, if we win ball games, then that's what we got to do. Tonight doesn't matter because we didn't win. So, all in all, every time we come in here, we got to win games, and if we do that, then I think we can be in contention.
The Nats' Gio Gonzalez pitched into the 4th inning, allowing all of the O's runs. This report brought to you by the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. Each day, more than 1.6 million Americans suffer with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. Support the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America to help and to find cures at ccfa.org. I'm John Lewis. When you're looking for news from Black America, go to news1.com.
This traffic update brought to you by MedStar Washington Hospital Center. 295 jammed southbound after Eastern down toward Pennsylvania Avenue. The Beltway through Prince George's County has been and continues to be very slow. After Branch headed to the Wilson Bridge outer loop, the accident activity approaching the 95 interchange, still in the 2 center lanes with a truck and a horse trailer. And you're slow from before Route 1, top side of the Beltway from College Park around past Georgia with the volume delays. MedStar Washington Hospital Center, home to the first and only comprehensive stroke center in the region, providing expert care for the most complex stroke patients. Now your WOL weather forecast brought to you by Unbound. Cloudy skies today with a high of 74, clearing tonight, 56 your low, 80 degrees tomorrow under mostly sunny skies. 63 degrees right now in Washington. At Unbound, they believe in the potential of an educated child to change the life of her family, her community, and our world. Learn more at unbound.org. I'm Jeff Newman for News Talk 1450 WOLAM, where information is power.
Your voice can now be heard.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. With Carl Nelson weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us 20 minutes from the top of the hour with our guest, the psychiatrist, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. And Dr. Welsing, before we left for the news, I told you, several people have said to me, especially women, well, most all women actually, said they love Empire. I said, I love Dr. Welsing. I love Empire. I don't understand why Dr. Welsing doesn't love Empire. So we can throw Scandal in there as well.
They love Scandal because it's being seen in the abstract. It's not being seen within understanding the system of racism, white supremacy. As Neely Fuller said, if you don't understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and exactly how it works, everything else that you think you understand will only confuse you. I asked an audience of 100 people not that long ago, if you were a white person and you were, had a big business, which character in Empire would you hire?
That's a good question.
Which one would you hire? And nobody came up with a single one. Again, see, black people entertain themselves with calling themselves niggers and dogs and bitches and hoes and gangsters and thugs, and then wonder why nobody wants to employ them. Now, unbeknownst to black people, that on the white side of the chessboard, the system of racism, white supremacy, is paying for black people to present themselves in certain images that will justify not providing schools for black people, moving them out of urban centers, not treating them with any level of respect. See, we don't understand the whole. We don't understand how things are connected. As Neely Fuller said, if you don't understand the system, what you think is just abstract entertainment is a way of programming you to fit the justification of your genocide. How can black people simultaneously say Black Lives Matter and then call themselves thugs, gangsters and thugs? I looked at an article in a newspaper recently where it was talking about a particular black rap artist who goes back and forth between whether I'm a male, whether I'm a female, a male, talking about my husband, this and that. Fine. He's singing a rap that says, if you have AIDS, give it to me. If you have another sexually transmitted disease, I want it. Give it to me. Now, this is amongst people who, black people, us, who have the highest incidence of HIV. And we are entertaining ourselves, listening to somebody say, if you have AIDS, give it to me, meaning don't use any protection. Don't get yourself tested. See, in a sense, we really have become insane and don't really know what has happened to us. And so, again, I'm not giving up, and I will, as long as I have breath, we'll talk about we must begin to understand what is happening. We are asking, amongst some of us, for reparations. Every black person who is a descendant of an enslaved person is due trillions of dollars in reparations. But if some people have you slated for genocide, why would they simultaneously think of genociding you and giving you some money for past wrongs when the wrong has not even been completed, but it's on the board? So we're not looking at, again, we're not looking at the whole picture. See, black people talk about wanting to be equal to white people. If they understood the genetics of it, white people are not equal genetically to black people. Because white people don't have, white, that's what it means, the genetic inability to produce melanin pigment, even though you have the cells that are supposed to do it. But because of a genetic deficiency state, this is not Francis Welsing's genetics. Just read genetics. Because of a genetic deficiency state and the failure to produce a particular enzyme called tyrosinase, their cells do not function. And so in genetic literature, albinism is called a genetic deficiency state. Not Francis Welsing, but Francis Welsing can read, and Francis Welsing is a physician. So I'm saying that these are things, in other words, black people are looking and thinking, oh, finally we're winning the Emmys, and finally we've got our own shows, and finally, and this is great, and white people are sitting and looking and saying Planet of the Apes. Or black people are looking at Scandal, oh, this is wonderful. And black women sitting and identifying with a black woman who is in the same position that we were in formal slavery, with slave masters raping us and passing us from one white man to the next white man. And we don't even understand that black women are looking at it because there is a black man deficiency. 70% of the households are single-family households with women because of the war, specific war of racism, white supremacy. If there's going to be white genetic survival, then black men have to be dead. And because we don't understand racism, white supremacy, a specific system that has been established, maintained, expanded, and refined by people who classify themselves as white for their genetic survival. That's why I don't refer to it as hate. No, they had a problem. They analyzed what was going on the planet in terms of demographics and genetics. And they realized that they were woefully outnumbered by people of color, and that they could genetically disappear. And once they decided that they didn't want to genetically disappear, even though they might want a suntan, they don't want to genetically disappear as white because they set up an entire system for the benefit of people who classify themselves as white.
All right. Hold that thought right there, Dr. Welsing. 10 minutes away from the top of the hour, 800-450-7876. The class is open. The couch is ready. Let's all sit along, folks. 800-450-7876. Again, that's the number to call to get in to speak to Dr. Welsing. I'll take your calls next as the big show rolls on from the capital city on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Moving today or tomorrow and not sure who to call? Well, your worries are over. Ted's Moving and Hauling at 301-254-8221 is your one-stop place to call when you need to move from your apartment, home, or office. Ted's Moving and Hauling is one of the best, with experience and professional movers to handle all your needs with no job too large or too small. Ted's can do it all. Call now to find out more. 301-254-8221. That's 301-254-8221. Need something hauled away? Ted can do that too. Ted's Moving and Hauling is one of the best, and with some of the best prices in town. So, if you need to move uptown, downtown, or out of town, call Ted's Moving and Hauling today at 301-254-8221. That's 301-254-8221. That's Ted's Moving and Hauling. Moving you from your home, office, or church. Call Ted's today at 301-254-8221.
Have lunch every Friday at 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. with Law, Money, and You right here on WOL 1450 AM. Law impacts every part of your life. Money is a part of your everyday life, and it's all about you. Every Friday, you will learn about the laws that will help you gain and protect your money while improving you and your family's life. It's all about you understanding how the law gives you asset protection to leave a legacy, improve your credit, your retirement plan, college funding, and everyday money management. The knowledge of the law and money is fun, but having it and using it wisely is even more fun. The fun starts every Friday right here on WOL, beginning at 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. with your hosts, Raymond Starks and attorney Marie Farrow. It's Law, Money, and You, a show designed with you in mind, so be sure to tune in this and every Friday at 12:30 p.m. right here on News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power. Don't miss this Friday's broadcast.
I can make an impact in the world. As young people think that we can't make a difference, but not only we can make a difference, but sometimes we can make the biggest difference.
We wanted to be the doers and we wanted to be the changers.
You just have to find something that you're passionate about and use your talents and your abilities to volunteer.
Volunteering doesn't have to be a chore.
It really is a reward in itself.
It helps you get farther in life.
There is no better feeling than helping somebody else.
You could see one person smile, you could tell they needed that smile, and it could really change and open up your heart to new things.
A lot of things are really competitive about individual achievement. Volunteering is a way to take a step back from that.
See a need, gather friends, and change the world. Changing someone's world. It happens now. This is the time. And this is when you learn, so why not start?
Are you a young volunteer making a difference? Apply for the Prudential Spirit of Community Award. Visit spirit.prudential.com.
Real talk radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. And our guest is Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. You know her from the ISIS Papers. That's her best-selling book. She's here connecting the dots and help us. Says we need a new black attitude, a new mindset to achieve all our goals. Just want to remind you that if you missed the show, you can go to the website, WOLDCnews.com. That's WOLDCnews.com. They got the podcast of all these shows now since we bowed to your request. For folks who cannot hear at a certain time, just go to WOLDCnews.com. We've got a bunch of folks who want to speak to Dr. Welsing. So when you come on, put it in a question form so she can respond. Let's go to Brother X on line 1. He's calling us from Chicago. Brother X, you have a question for Dr. Welsing.
Well, thank you, brother. It's always a pleasure to hear and talk to you and Dr. Welsing. And I admire you all courage. I agree with everything Dr. Welsing said, and also when you be saying things. Now, we've been set up to be just where we are. Right now, as we speak, they are creating an atmosphere of anarchy in the country. They are creating an atmosphere of anarchy in the country so that would lead into our outright extermination. We are the next people to be exterminated. Now, Garvey said in the 1920s.
Just a favor, Brother X. There's a bunch of folks want to speak to Dr. Welsing. Put in a question for him so she can respond.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Welsing, we are about to be outright exterminated. Outside of us leaving, that's what I tell people. If you can get out, what do you suggest we do? Because we are fitting to be exterminated.
All right, thanks, Brother X.
This is what I'm hoping that I'm talking about. That it's as though black people don't realize they're at a chessboard, and game is being played against them. The black people want to think because we have been programmed not to like ourselves. Black people want to consciously, subconsciously be loved, be accepted by white people, be treated by white people in the same way that white people treat each other. But white people can't do that and genetically survive. But if we don't understand that people who classify themselves as white, and I advocate stop calling it hate. No, it's racism, white supremacy. It's a mindset, a pattern of perception, logic, thought, speech, action, and emotional response carried out in all areas of people activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war for their genetic survival. I mean, I guess you can say people have a right to set up a system for their genetic survival. That's fine. But if they are hurting other people, the logical answer, if you are afraid of genetic annihilation or that your genetic survival is in threat, then you have to commit genocide on the people who are the threat. And so this is why we have right now the highest incidence of black men, white women relating to black men openly in the history of the United States. And simultaneously, we see the people who have the job of first-line defenders in a system of white supremacy, call them police. Then the police, white men, are shooting black men dead in the street. And this is what Dylan Roof said in Charleston, South Carolina. I have to kill you. I have to kill you. But even when a scene is laid out as clearly all the elements are in place, young white man takes gun into black church, sits and prays with black people, gets up, takes his gun out and shoots and kills 9 people. Wrote a manifesto, laid it out beforehand, told the people what he had to do. I'm going to let one of you survive so that you can report on what I said and did. And black people still don't want to look at it. And I maintain that is because there has been black self-respect annihilation, which is critical to the maintenance of the system of racism, white supremacy. You have to reduce people so they don't value themselves. You have to pay them millions of dollars to program one another so they accept being called nigger. They accept being called bitch. They accept being called a whore. They accept being called a dog and a gangster and thug. All of those terms mean you're nothing. You're life unworthy of life. Now that's preparatory, just like what happened in Nazi Germany. When Hitler said it's a group of people who are not white. Europe has to be white and pure. So the people who are not white have to be killed. Hitler said of the Semites of the Jewish religion in his book, I don't care about their religion. I'm killing them because they're not white. And what we see being played out right now with the massive migration of people who are considered to be not white, as the lands where they came from are being torn up because people who classify themselves as white want the oil, and so destroy the land, destroy the homes, force the people away from their homes, and then the oil territory can be occupied. Force them into Europe. Now, because you have a significant number of people who classify themselves as white who are not thinking about white genetic annihilation consciously. But the minute that the people in Europe and these white countries see these hordes of darker people coming into their lands, then they're ready to engage in Hitler activity all over again. Because they cannot ingest that number of dark people and have white genetic survival.
All right, hold that thought right there, Doc, because we got to step aside for a traffic update. Folks, you too can get on this conversation with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Reach out to us, 800-450-7876. Again, that number is 800-450-7876 to take your calls after this news report, the traffic report actually, on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
This update brought to you by Food Lion. If you're traveling on the Capitol Beltway, the inner loop between the Springfield Interchange and Braddock Road did have accident activity. It's been moved off to the right side of the roadway. Inner and outer loop of the Beltway across the Woodrow-Wilson Bridge are good to go. Local lanes, through lanes open. Northbound on I-295. Coming up from the Beltway, headed up towards Suitland Parkway, you're going to find all your lanes open. A brief delay after Laboratory Road, but nothing in your way to get you slowed down at all there. No reported problems on inbound Suitland Parkway, coming past Branch Avenue and Stanton Road, and getting to Firth Sterling. It's a good trip as well. To and across the Douglas Bridge, that looks good, passing Nats Park. No reported problems southbound on 295 in the district. As you come past Eastern Avenue, watch for the brake lights approaching Benning, and then again at River Terrace, approaching East Capitol Street. No reported problems getting to the 11th Street Bridge, to and across the 11th Street Bridge and the westbound side of the Southeast-Southwest Freeway. All your lanes are open. Inside the northbound 3rd Street Tunnel, everything looking good there as well. Stay on budget without sacrificing quality with Food Lion brand products. They're affordable and easy to trust with a double your money back guarantee. Life's better with the Lion. Food Lion. Washington weather, looking at highs in the 80s today under mostly sunny skies, and tonight lows dipping into the 60s. No reported problems as far as rain on the way, but you can expect Thursday and Friday, highs both days in the low to mid 80s, lows also in the 60s in the city. Now 68 degrees in Washington, and I'm Jim Lavin on WOL 1450 AM. WOL, where information is power.
As parents, we are entrusted to raise and educate our children, so get more involved with your child's school and help with homework. Parents, remember, children need our support and love. Let's show them that school is cool and drugs are for fools. That's from Eagle Academy Public Charter School in Washington, playing a vital role in educating our youth. Visit us online at www.eagleacademypcs.org or on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Always enrolling students at Eagle Academy. Call 202-544-2646, where they care about our youth.
As I went through school, one giant question loomed over me. What did I want to be? But in order to know what I wanted to be, I had to first decide what I wanted to make. I wanted to make more. So I became a teacher. Now I make learning a privilege, not a chore, and frustration a tool, not an obstacle. I make working hard seem easy, and giving up impossible. I make an old subject feel like a fresh thought, and unconventional methods common. I make material things less important, and little things like patience and kindness count. I make weekdays more exciting than weekends, and classrooms feel like anything but. I make things different, which is all I ever hoped for. I'm a teacher. I make more.
Find out how you can make more at teach.org. Make more. Teach. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
Okay, so Sarah, I'm dropping you off at Emily's?
Yep.
And Josh, you're going to?
Soccer, Dad. Soccer practice.
Right. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know when I pick you both up, I'll be wearing my short shorts.
What? No!
Yep. And my dorky dad hat, and I'm going to do my dad dance for all your friends. They'll love it!
Seriously? Why?
Because I like my short shorts. Of course, I could be talked out of it if you guys would just buckle up your seatbelts without giving me a hard time.
It's important to get your kids to buckle up for safety, no matter what it takes. And sometimes, all it takes is your parental powers of persuasion.
Okay, we're buckling up. See, all buckled.
Good choice. I'll just have to do my dad dance at dinner time.
What?
No!
Do what you have to make sure your kids are wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
WOL Washington, WPRS HD2 Waldorf, WKYS HD2 Washington, WMMJ HD2 Bethesda, a Radio 1 station, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show
on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is psychiatrist Dr. Francis Chris Welsing, and the number to call to speak to Dr. Welsing is 800-450-7876, and they tell me that you go to WOLDC News website. You can get the podcast. Of course, not at this show because it's not up there yet. We haven't finished, but yesterday's show is already up there. So tell your friends to go to WOLDCnews.com. That's WOLDCnews.com. And you can find the podcast for at least yesterday's show. And this one will be probably up tomorrow or later today. 800-450-7876 at 6 minutes after the hour. Number to call. Speak to Dr. Welsing. Let's go to Charlotte on line 3. James is joining us. James, you have a question for Dr. Welsing.
Yes, I do. Good morning, family. Good morning, Dr. Welsing.
Good morning.
I agree with you when your first open statement, and I love that we need to change our thinking. I do have two questions, but the first thing I would like to say is I think as we get more knowledge of what is going on in society, we should change our thinking. I think white people do want us to think about the system of white supremacy and racism. They want to get us stuck on that. And these two questions I would like for you to please answer, and they might make you understand my first statement. Carl just had a guest on the radio station told us, and something I have always believed in, self-preservation. That's the first law of nature, self-preservation. And could it be self-preservation versus the system of white supremacy that they don't want us to think about? And my second question is...
Now, wait a minute. Let me do one at a time, if you please.
Okay.
Are you saying whose self-preservation?
Anyone's. Everything in that the Creator have made has a mechanism called self-preservation.
Well, this is what I say, people who classify themselves as white, that's what the system of racism, white supremacy is.
Okay, and then...
system of preservation of a group of people who are a minority and genetic recessive, because they find themselves in the midst of an overwhelming majority of people who are genetically dominant to themselves. And they simply figured out what we have to do is dominate and control them.
Okay, and then if that's the case, then that's going to bring up another question before I ask my question number 2. Then what's wrong with us, because we're supposed to have that same mechanism, self-preservation.
All right, but if somebody can annihilate your... See, in other words, you have to have a level of self-respect before you can begin to engage in self-preservation. And so strategically, people who don't want you to be preserved, they will annihilate your self-respect. And once your self-respect is annihilated, you will participate in your own destruction. And once I program your brain to call you a nigger and a dog and a gangster and a thug and a bow wow and a hoe, then your brain is programmed to engage in self-destruction.
Okay, question number 2. If I went around and I asked all my friends or all the places I have traveled in throughout this earth, and I asked black people would they want their kids to be white, I'm pretty sure I would come up with the same answer. No. So this is what I'm saying is...
Well, I would disagree with that. I would disagree.
All my friends I asked, I don't think none of them want their kids to be white. That's number one, all my friends, okay? Reason why I say that is because your open statement is so powerful when you say a new way of thinking. If they trap us into thinking the system of white supremacy, which they want us locked into that, we'll never be thinking about self-preservation, that every animal and every plant on this earth has that mechanism that we can't pull out for some reason or another. We lost it here and overseas and everything else. And that's what I want us to think about. Wait a minute.
Let me just say this. When I talk about racism and its goal objective, so black people will begin to understand how systematically and continuously their self-respect is being annihilated. If you simply turn on the television and you see white, 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 and I will wager you it's contrary to what I wish were the case, but dealing with reality, that the percentage of black people, if they knew that they could become white tomorrow, white skin, so-called white features, white hair, if they didn't have to stand in front of their friends and say, I'm going to sign up, the vast majority of black people would sign up because of the consistent. It's just like people being programmed to buy products from the television. You show it, you show it, you show it, and then they go and buy it.
Dr. Welsing.
So, yes, go right ahead.
That would be anything if elephants was in charge of everybody on this planet. People want power. They want voices in charge. So we will all be wanting to be elephants. But
wait a minute. Then when the leopard decides that the leopard wants to be an elephant, then the leopard is not going to engage in leopard self-preservation.
Because he don't have the mechanism of our same brain power, our same thinking power as...
No, I'm talking about creatures that have the same brain power.
Right, but
if one dominates the other...
They stay out of the way.
Yeah.
They stay out of the way. And that's the problem. We inside this box. We inside of this box.
Right.
And we want to continue to stay inside of this box. and we want to fight inside of this box. That's what my whole thesis is about. Why isn't it we can't think self-preservation to get out of the box and do for self? See, as long as we stay in the box, anything that happens to us, we should just welcome it because we the one want to stay in the box. I think if you had a lady in front of you in a relationship was telling you she was getting abused, you would tell her to get out of the house. You wouldn't tell her to try to solve a problem inside that house. If you know it was threatening to her life, you would tell her to get outside of that house. And that's the problem with black people in this country. We still want to stay in this box and then complain about what's going on inside the box versus getting outside the box and make our own box.
Okay, let me say this. Racism, white supremacy dominates the planet. There's no place that black people are going to get out and go someplace else. The planet is dominated by people who classify themselves as white. Now, this is when I start talking about self-respect and the importance of black people focusing on and deciding that they are going to renew their self-respect when it is being bombarded every day. If your self-respect is being destroyed every day, you have to have somebody come along and say, wait a minute, look at what is happening. That's what
hold that thought right there, Doc. I'll let you finish on the other side. James, thank you for your call. It's 14 after the hour. 800-450-7876 to speak to Dr. Francis Grace Welsing. Your call's next after this traffic report on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
This traffic update brought to you by TrueCar. Well, if you're traveling on the top side of the Capitol Beltway, the outer loop, things starting to clear out a little bit. We did have accident activity. It was just after Connecticut Avenue. That is now completely cleared away. Inbound on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, traveling from the Beltway down to the 50 interchange in New York Avenue and beyond. You're going to find it a good trip right now. Inbound New York Avenue, approaching the Anacostia crossing, as well as Bladensburg Road, West Virginia, Montana Avenues, and Florida Avenue. You're going to find just brief delays at the traffic lights as you move towards the 3rd Street Tunnel. Northbound 3rd Street Tunnel coming out of the, or off of the eastbound side of the Southeast Southwest Freeway. All your lanes are open. The ramp, just a brief delay to Massachusetts Avenue, that will be due to traffic light and volume. And eastbound on the Southeast Southwest Freeway. Coming off the 14th Street Bridge, Case Bridge, and approaching the 3rd Street Tunnel, you'll find all your lanes open and everything running up to speed. TrueCar is the fun way to buy a new car, and make sure you never overpay. TrueCar users save an average of over $3,000 off MSRP. Save time, save money, and never overpay. Download the TrueCar app today. Washington weather today. We're looking at highs in the low to mid 80s, and then later tonight we're looking at in the 60s. Good sleeping weather. Right now 68 degrees. And on 1450 AM WOL, I'm Jim Lavin, where information is power. WOL.
This is the sound of one person walking. This is another. Imagine the sound of more than 5 million footsteps, one for every American living with Alzheimer's disease. Now add in the millions more who feel its effects, and think about the impact we make when we all walk together to put an end to Alzheimer's for good. Join the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's. Walk with us this fall in D.C. and Prince George's County. Sign up today at alz.org/walk. That's alz.org/walk.
There's a 3-digit number that rules your financial life, and if you haven't had a lot of good financial luck lately, your number is somewhat south of 720. So go, check. Credit reporting agencies will tell you for free. If that's not the number you want, I have a phone number that will help you now. For just $99 per credit agency, the Credit Law Centers guarantees you will get a credit score you will love. Clean up your credit and be credit-worthy with any credit reporting agency for just $99. Operators are standing by, so call right now. Call now and get your score up to 720 at 800-536-1505. 800-536-1505. It's guaranteed. You can clean up your credit for a one-time fee of just $99 per credit reporting agency by calling 800-536-1505. 800-536-1505. Get your 720 credit score by calling now at 800-536-1505.
The more you learn about your insurance coverage, the more gaps you might find. Like how you thought you were covered for this.
Honey, someone stole my wedding ring.
When you're really only covered for this.
Honey, someone stole my Dakota ring. Oh, well, it was weird anyway.
Or how with renter's insurance, you're covered for
valuables, electronics, bikes, karaoke machines, waffle makers, superhero pajamas.
And without it, you're covered for... Talk to a farmer's agent about what gaps might be hiding in your insurance.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
You must have thrown 1,000 pitches teaching him to hit a home run. Spent countless Saturdays running routes so he could learn to hit an open receiver. Endless afternoons teaching him how to hit the three-pointer. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit? Teaching boys that all violence against women is wrong is one of the most important things a man can do. Learn how to start the conversation at teachearly.org. Brought to you by Futures Without Violence and the Ad Council.
Real Talk Radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us once again back on Dr. Francis Welsing's couch. So if you please put in a question for him so Dr. Welsing can respond. Number to call to reach her is 800-450-7876, 20 minutes after the hour. Let's go to Randy in Silver Spring, Maryland, on line 4. Randy on line 4, you're on with Dr. Welsing. You have a question for Dr. Welsing.
Yes, I do. Dr. Welsing, weren't the ancient Romans the first races? I mean, they fought Hannibal, they killed black people, they enslaved Africans, they burned down African countries, they controlled Africans. Weren't they the first races? I think that's 2,000 years ago. Talk about the ancient Romans.
Well, you know, if you just look at your map and you see that gigantic continent of Africa, and you see the little Mediterranean, and you see the boot of Italy and Rome coming down into the Mediterranean, and you know that the Romans went into Africa.
Right.
I mean, the story of Caesar and Cleopatra. Do you see? So, yes, the Romans went into Africa. They miscegenated the people. But that was when, in Roman times, the white people didn't know about the entire planet. But was racism being practiced? At some level, if the Romans remained white, they had to be practicing, if you're black, get background, stick around, yellow, mellow, white, right. And that's still being practiced. It's being practiced all over Europe. It's like a Scandinavian person told me, in Scandinavia, we don't still consider Italians and Jews to be white. Because if you go from north to south, the people get darker. The people get darker as you go south in Europe because they had miscegenation from Hannibal and all the other Africans that went up into that part of the world. So, yes, if the Romans were white, they were sifting out, just like in all of the places where people who classify themselves as white go amongst people of color. They miscegenate the people, and then they pull the mixed-race people to the top. That's just going on right now. White people are talking about mixed race, white women having sex with black men and talking about, oh, they're not black, they're mixed race. And so the people who are all the black people in the United States are mixed race. But the immediate first degree mixed race, let's pull these people out and set them apart from. Like one of the black law professors at Harvard said, many of the people who are accepted into the law school are mixed race because that brings with it a particular mindset. I almost am white. I'm really not all, I look black, but I'm not really all black. That's an important mindset to use in the maintenance of racism, white supremacy. Someone who is ambivalent about color. They could almost have been in the most powerful group. But because of the black parent, I'm not there. I almost could be there.
All right. 800-450-7876. Let's keep moving. Let's go to line 5. Howard's calling us from Los Angeles. Howard, you're on with Dr. Welsing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking my call. Hello?
Yes.
Do you have a question for Dr. Welsing?
I just like to thank Dr. Welsing for opening my eyes to racism and things that have been talked that she did. I never read the book, but I had her tape. Carl Pushing Person Men did Black Liberation Weekend back in the 90s, and he did it this past summer again. And just over my eyes, growing up in California, different kind of racism here. And my family came from the South, and hearing their stories and things. And you open my eyes, and one of my man, a lot of questions that as a man has been answered. I had as a child. That's one of the questions I had as a child. Why do white people hate me? What do we do to them? Why? And you have to think in your talk that once you open the brain computer, you always ask yourself the question, why? You start thinking about it. You start asking for solution answers. I didn't get my answer from you. And I just, the questions I have, one thing I want to know, you and Bobby Wright, Dr. Bobby Wright, have, I call my course in Racism 101. He deals with psychopathic personality of white people. And with genetics. So that answers my question as far as racism goes as a child, as young, a grown man. I try to spread that around with my young people because they don't understand it. They don't understand why they're sagging and things and then doing this and doing that, why people pull them over and shoot them down the street. I try to pass it around since I'm an elder, and I'm taking my eldership very seriously. This past
Howard, can you put in a question for him? Because we got a bunch of folks who need questions. I want to get it so Dr. Welsing can respond.
So one question is, what happened to Bobby Wright, if you know anything about him? And also, could you comment about the Bill Cosby situation?
So comment in what way about Bill Cosby?
Why? What's happened all of a sudden? Why all these years is going around and they decided to, bring it out? And is it because he's a black man and trying to bring him down and that type of thing too?
I say within the framework of understanding the system of racism, when the news stories started presenting all the different cases of white police killing black men, then the Cosby story surfaced in a major way because I said racism is about preventing white genetic annihilation. The threat to white genetic annihilation is the black male. And so Bill Cosby happened to be one example that they could pull up and use. Look, this black man, when all the cases of white police officers shooting black men and getting away with it, or being called justifiable homicide, then the news media consciously and or subconsciously brings up the case of Bill Cosby. Look, everybody, this black man is raping or has raped whatever number of years ago all these white women. Alert, alert. This is exactly what Dylan Storm Bruce said. I have to kill you because black men want to rape white women. He's making a statement of the importance of white genetic survival. The threat to white genetic survival is not women, black women, because women cannot impose sexual intercourse on men. Men can impose sexual intercourse on women. And so if you want to understand white genetic survival, it's necessity to kill black men. So they drag out the case of Bill Cosby. No mention of all the white slave masters that raped black women of all ages, including Thomas Jefferson, president. No, we don't talk about that, but we talk about the black man wants to rape the white woman at the same time that white women are pursuing black men. You see, but the system is still about white genetic survival. So at this point, we got the highest incidence of white women with black men, and so then we see massive cases every other week a case of white police officers. Those are white males who are justified carrying a gun in the system of white supremacy, killing black men, and said, I was afraid of him. I thought he had a weapon.
Right. Hold that thought right there, Doc.
The weapon is in his pants. It's his genetic ability to produce white genetic annihilation.
Right. Hold that thought right there, Dr. Welsing. 800-450-7876. Got to step aside for a couple of announcements. We'll come back. More of your phone calls. And folks, put in a question for him so Dr. Welsing can respond. Your calls are next. This is Big Show. Rolls on from 1450. WOL, where information is power.
For over 75 years, Geico's been about consistency, as in we've consistently helped people save money on their car insurance. And to prove it, we'll air one of our first radio commercials from over 75 years ago.
At Geico, we're all about consistency, as in we consistently help people save money on their car insurance. To prove it, you can call Geico. Call us today, call us tomorrow, call us 75 years from now.
That was way more consistent than I expected.
Geico, saving people money for over 75 years.
To the insurance company that did me wrong. I've moved on and am happily insured with another. Bless your pea-picking heart. It was just never meant to be betwixt us. You gave me automobile insurance apprehension, and Geico has come along and in just 15 minutes given me new car insurance and made me as jubilant as a newborn lamb in springtime. And Paul has given Geico his approval. That's one thing you never had. Joyful with another. Clara May in Columbia.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Harbor Point Wealth Management assists retirees and pre-retirees in the creation of retirement strategies utilizing insurance products to provide guarantees backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. We are not affiliated with the U.S. government or any governmental agency.
Are you confident that you won't outlive your savings during retirement? Studies have shown that outliving their money in retirement is the #1 concern of most retirees. Karen Scott Mims, ESQ of Harbor Point Wealth Management, can help. She can offer a retirement income analysis that will answer your questions about retirement, including, will I have enough money to last? Will my spouse have enough money if I pass away? What rate of return will I need to average to avoid running low on money? And what impact would another downturn have on my retirement income? To get your income analysis, call Karen today, 866-621-6660, to receive your complimentary retirement income analysis. Call today, 866-621-6660.
Hi, this is Karen Scott Mims. If you're interested in tax-efficient retirement planning, give us a call at 866-621-6660.
100 Reporters is holding a contest for the best short documentary by high school students in D.C. Entry is free. Prizes range from $100 to $500. The winner will be announced at a special youth screening at the Investigative Film Festival, opening at the National Portrait Gallery 2015. Go to investigativefilmfestival.com/spot.
Real talk radio in the AM.
The #1 morning show. #1 on everybody list.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Just 30 minutes past the hour. Our guest is Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. You know her, psychiatrist from the ISIS papers. Again, the number to call to speak to her, though, is 800-450-7876. Let's go to Cynthia on line 2. Cynthia on line 2 calling us from North Carolina. Cynthia, you have a question for Dr. Welsing.
Hi, thank you for taking my call, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with this beautiful and brilliant mind. I want to ask you two questions, Dr. Frances. First of all, you had mentioned something about changing the mindset of black people. How do you change the mindset of black people in getting them to support black businesses? Because it seems like we make every other race rich except for our own. And as Carl had mentioned before, when we give our money to these other races and receive bad customer service, we will go back and give the repeat business to these same people. But when blacks give them bad services, they're done. And secondly, you had mentioned something in reference to a lot of the white women are chasing the black men, but you have black men chasing white women as well, because you hear it in the rap songs about how they want every other race with the exception of black women. And my last quick question, can you refer to that article that you have read about in a rap song about this person wanted to get AIDS, or something to that matter? And I thank you so much for taking my call.
Well, I would say that it's the systematic programming that black is something that is negative. And if we are not aware that this programming is being deliberately done, then, when you say black is bad, black is bad, black is bad, black is bad, then you're saying don't shop, don't go to a black store, don't buy from black, buy white. That's an implicit part of that communication and that message. But if you begin to understand that you are being systematically programmed to think negatively about black, then you do your own mental corrective. See, I won't say that black people don't patronize black people, because I have black patients coming to my office all the time. And I have black patients coming to my office falling apart because of the racism, white supremacy that they are enduring on their job. I left my office at 11 p.m. last night, helping a young black woman who was talking about all the things of racism that are happening on the job, how white people relate to black people, how black people relate in a destructive way to each other. And my message to her was that you have to learn how to think in a positive way about yourself, and you have to understand how the system of racism influences these patterns of behavior. Talked to another young black man who's trying to get a doctorate degree, and how a black person in a white situation tried to block him from getting his PhD. See, this is all of the sickness that goes on 24/7 because of the systematic program. I'm looking at my television and the sound is off, and here is the Pope all dressed in white. The Pope was passing along a row of young people, and he kissed the white young person, kissed the white young person, kissed the white young person, passed 3 blacks, didn't kiss them. This is just going continuous, 24/7 programming about racism, white supremacy. And unless a black person begins to have a conscious understanding of racism, not hate white people, don't waste energy hating white people. Understand people who classify themselves as white and the behavior that they have to engage in for their own white self-preservation. But that behavior is injustice and harm to the vast majority of the people on the planet. And so I say that the counter strategy is for black people to pick their self-respect up off of the ground and learn how to respect themselves and learn how to respect one another. Because a system of racism, white supremacy, cannot survive without massive help from the non-white people who have been programmed to hate themselves all over this planet. If the non-white people learn, number 1, what racism, white supremacy is, learn 2, that the annihilation of non-white self-respect is essential for the maintenance of white supremacy. And so, therefore, they use the very tool. It's like jujitsu. Wait a minute, you want to destroy my self-respect? Then I'm going to do everything conceivable to enhance my respect for myself and respect for one another, so that you no longer have black people and people of color willing to harm each other after they have been brought guns and weapons by the system of racism, white supremacy. Carl, that's the new black thing, or the new black time. You see, but you can't, it's just like you can't play football unless you understand exactly and specifically what the game is all about, so that you can make defensive and offensive moves, specific moves, not any move, but specific moves relative to what the game is all about.
All right. 800-450-7876. I think we got to take a news report we're 23 minutes away from the top of the hour. Again, it's 800-450-7876. We'll take your phone calls to Dr. Francis West Welsing after this news report right here on 1450 WOL, where information is power. We still have time to another call, Kevin?
This report brought to you by Unbound. Unbound sponsorship fights poverty by strengthening human connections and nurturing interdependency. That's just one way Unbound is different. Learn more at unbound.org. An Upper Marlboro man pleaded guilty yesterday to a reduced charge, involuntary manslaughter, in the shooting death 2 years ago of a PG County police officer. It happened after Antoine James got into an argument with his stepfather, Joseph Newell, at their home on Green Moss Drive. James will be sentenced today to 10 years in prison. Marylanders who use public transportation to get to D.C. jobs need to check the MTA's website for updated service announcements. Adjustments are being made to accommodate the papal visit. Governor Hogan, who's being treated for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, says he'll meet the Pope tomorrow and will seek his prayers and blessings for cancer patients everywhere. Organizers say registration for next month's Baltimore Marathon is off by 10%, and they point to the riots following the police custody death of Freddie Gray.
I think it's pretty fair to connect the dots on this. Also, we've had a number of phone calls and emails, and then people always want to talk to us, about the safety of the city.
Baltimore Running Festival owner Lee Corrigan says he's hoping to attract more local runners to take the place of out-of-towners who are staying away. A judge in Northern Virginia has ruled still photographers will be allowed at the trial of accused Alexandria serial killer Charles Severance, but no TV cameras. The trial is scheduled to start in 2 weeks. Severance is charged with 3 murders over 10 years. The Orioles beat the Nationals 4-1. Nats manager Matt Williams.
Had chances, yeah. That's again, make pitches when you need to, and I don't know. We had 3 hits or something. Didn't have many, so we had some fly balls. We had some chances. Didn't come through tonight. We've been coming through a lot lately, but not tonight.
O's pitcher Ubaldo Jimenez allowed only 1 unearned run and 3 hits over 6 innings. This report brought to you by Unbound. At Unbound, they don't see poverty, they see potential. That's just one way Unbound is different. Learn more at unbound.org. I'm John Lewis. When you're looking for news from Black America, go to newsone.com.
Good morning. This WOL traffic update is brought to you by Noodles & Company. Closures downtown for the Pope's visit, of course, in effect today and tomorrow. Getting through downtown, not advisable by vehicle, but if you do so, you can stick with the freeway south of the closures, anywhere north of K Street, north of all the closures, west of the closures. 23rd Street is open. East, anything east of 12th Street will get you through most of the downtown closures as well. At Noodles & Company, lunch is different. Different is made to order. Sautéed fresh, 1 pan at a time. Different is better. Noodles & Company, made different. Now your WOL weather forecast brought to you by the Ad Council. For today, mostly sunny, a high near 80 degrees, a few clouds overnight, down to 58 for low. Tomorrow, a mix of clouds and sun, and a high near 81. Understanding your finances is a key to a strong financial future. Learn how to take control of your finances today at feedthepig.org. It's partly cloudy, 65 degrees right now in Washington, D.C. Steve Hirschhorn for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Your voice can now be heard.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. With Carl Nelson weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, from the ISIS papers. And the number to call to reach her and put in a question form so she can respond, please. 800-450-7876. We're 20 minutes away from the top of the hour, 20 minutes away before we leave here. Let's go to line 6. Miss Linus in D.C. You have a question for Dr. Welsing.
Yes. Good morning, Dr. Francis. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning.
This is Miss Linus. I'm with the Black People's Movement in Washington, D.C. And I had a question for you. I'm sitting here listening to all the callers, and I'm listening to your expertise information. But I was trying to figure out, and let me know what you think about this. I'm trying to figure out if perhaps an answer to this issue is, do you think that if all the black women band together and told all the black men, you know what, I'm not going to give you any more of my jolly. No more goodies for 1 year until you sit down and figure out how you're going to stop this white supremacy system and protect us, black women. Do you think that the black man will try to figure out a solution to this problem?
Well, let me say, I think that black men and black women together, you see, but really whosoever will decide that they want to work on the problem of racism, white supremacy, and replace this unjust system with a system of justice, where instead of my forcing somebody to do something or trying to force somebody, then I take the same energy and say, what I'm going to do is. And if black people, I think that for black men and black women to really understand the significance, the mental health, the physical health significance of self-respect as manifested in our behavior. It's just like I think that an element of self-respect is that black people, just looking at what has happened in the last several years, and black people say, no, we're going to put a stamp of black self-respect on the holidays. So there's not going to be any turkey buying, cranberries, no matter how delicious all that is. No Halloween costumes. No white Christmas. No, a black self-respect Christmas, where we're saying, wait a minute, enough is enough.
Yes. But like you say,
where we're saying to the people who classify themselves as white as representatives of a system of racism, white supremacy, that, you know, we're not going to tolerate this. And I think that the men and women who see, in other words, if somebody taught, you know, said, here's a new dance step, and showed black people the latest dance step, it would take probably 2.5 days for it moved from New York to California. Do you see? Black people never say we can't learn the latest dance step. We can't learn the latest whatever. Do you see? But if we keep talking about the importance that our self-respect is being annihilated, that's why people can get us to sell drugs. That's why people can get us to use guns and kill each other. That's the way people get us to not respect one another, work cooperatively with one another. It's not just black people won't do it, it's 24/7 programming against black people doing this. Like, Carl, I just thought, here's the Pope on the TV. It's too bad you don't have a chance to interview him on the radio and say, Pope Francis, tell black people about the Black Madonna and Child. That's the holiest icon in the Catholic Church, and why that is not portrayed up front. It's kind of kept off in a corner and in the basement, but it's the holiest icon. Why is it the Black Madonna and Child? And so that the Pope can say, well, because Jesus, if he was a historic figure, was black.
Yeah, that would be a question.
Had to be black.
Right. Because that's in the basement of the Vatican.
Right. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's too bad the Pope, with all this attention being paid to him in his white garb at the White House, if the Pope could be politely asked that question.
But again, none of the reporters around him probably even know that, or would venture to ask that question if they knew.
You see, but we know it, and you are providing a venue for us to even mention it. And black people can say, black people who didn't know it, say, well, let me share this with another black person. This is an interesting fact. Let me share this. But I don't want to have the program close out without saying that everything is dependent upon our determination. And I say that we have to think about this. that the force that made this universe, some people call it God, whatever you want to call it, made black people the mothers and fathers of everybody on the planet. White people come from black people as a genetic mutation. Only crystal black people can produce all of the colors of the human family. Black plus albinism makes all the colors in the middle. And so if black people just begin to reflect, we're the parent people of the planet. Not only the people who built pyramids and first civilizations going back thousands and thousands of years, but we are the parent people on the planet. I'm a general psychiatrist and a child psychiatrist. I spend time talking to people in my office when they bring in problems with children. The issue is what is happening with the parents. What is happening with the parents? And if we begin to respect who we were placed on this planet to be, we're the parent people, and just like in many households where the parents get confused and don't know what to do, and the children take over the house, and the house is in chaos. And so if black people, see, there's nothing more valuable and important than self-respect. See, people want to say they're religious and spiritual. Well, the creative force made us black. And if we don't respect being black, and then we're supposed to be the most religious people in this part of the world, but we don't respect how we were made, what role we were made to play, and get in the business of restoring ourselves, deciding that, wait a minute, all these years of programming to hate black, to want to be white, rude and disrespectful to each other. Wait a minute, we're bringing this stuff to a halt. We are going to stop that, and we are going to change this unjust dynamic on this planet. And I believe if we begin to understand that, and it won't be 100% of everybody. I mean, I've had people say to me, somebody come up to me in the Safeway, Dr. Welsing, you don't know me. I heard you 20 years ago, and I knew you were crazy. Now I understand what you're talking about. It took me 20 years, but now I understand. So people don't understand all at the same time, and maybe there'll be some people who never agree. But for those people who don't like the circumstances and the conditions that we are under, if they say, well, wait a minute, let me try to understand what these circumstances are and how I can participate, because Neely Fuller laid out behaviors. Stop gossiping about one another. Stop name-calling one another. Stop squabbling with one another. Stop cursing one another. Stop snitching on one another for reasons of personal gain. Stop being discourteous. Stop being disrespectful. Stop robbing one another, stealing from one another, fighting one another, and killing one another.
All right, hold that thought right there. I'll let you finish that list on the other side. 800-450-7876 to speak to Dr. Welsing. 9 away from the top of the hour. Your calls are next as the big show rolls on from 1450 WOL, where information is power.
This is Barbara Arnwine. Be sure to tune in to Igniting Change every Tuesday from noon to 1 on WOL 1450 AM. I will provide provocative and empowering information to ignite change and inspire action in achieving racial justice and equality. It really is up to all of us to be and to ignite the change that we so desperately want to see in our neighborhoods, communities, our cities, our states, our nation, and the world. Each week, I want you to join me and my special guests to learn how your activism matters in realizing a more just and equal society for all. Ignite Change with me every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. Together we can make a difference. Visit BarbaraArnwine.com for more information.
When the need arises for a funeral repast or a place to hold a memorial service for your loved one, call the New Horizon Hall of Elegance, located at 2209 Varnum Street, Mount Rainier, Maryland. They will take the worry out of you having to handle one more detail, giving you time to focus on family and friends. Call 301-277-5922 to find out more. That's 301-277-5922. That's the New Horizon Hall of Elegance, ready to serve you in your time of need.
Looking for a caterer to cater your next event? One that's professional, prepares great tasting food, provides a professional staff, and will create tailor-made menus and services to fit your needs and budget, and so much more? Then you have to call A Touch of Class Caterers at 301-449-2082. For 18 years, A Touch of Class has been one of the Washington metropolitan area's premier caterers, providing you nothing but the best for your next event. So whether it's a wedding, rehearsal dinner, church function, repast celebration, or just a private dinner for two, and you want a little more class and elegance to make the day even more special, call A Touch of Class Caterers today at 301-449-2082 and let them take care of the intimate details. That's A Touch of Class Caterers, ready to handle your next event with a touch of class and elegance. Call them today, 301-449-2082, or log on to www.we-cater-2u.com.
Real Talk Radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us. 6 away from the top of the hour, and with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Let's go to line 1. KO's in D.C. KO, you have a question? Can you make it quick for us, for Dr. Welsing? KO's not there. Let's go to line 4 then. Let's go to AO. He's in Denver, Colorado. AO, can you make it quick for us?
Good morning, Brother Carl and Dr. Welsing. Dr. Welsing, I love you so much. You have no idea. I gave you a book to my teenage sons years ago, and they grew by it. But what I really want you to do is can you give them the understanding how racist television channel like Fox will come out with a show that predominantly focuses on black people and not have an embedded program inside to give them a specific kind of reaction to a specific thing. It could be sound, could be a vibration, could be a frequency. But that is not beyond technology. And I'll hang up and listen.
Carl, I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you please quickly repeat that for me?
Yeah, he wanted to know, Fox, that produces Empire, the subliminal embedded images that keeps us apart, keeps us from organizing, that goes over the heads of our folks who are into the Empire and Scandal and those kind of shows.
The specific images that are in those. See, again, my question, if you were a white employer, which character in those programs would you hire? And so if you come up with, when I look at this show, I don't see anybody that I would really hire if I have a serious business. Then,
if you're white or black.
Excuse me?
Even if you're a black employer, a black person, would you hire any of those?
Right. The system is not about the business of showing black people in their most dignified, self-respecting modality. And we have to understand that there is a specific reason for this. And decide, wait a minute, see, self-respect has to reach the level that no matter how much money I am being paid, I will not demean and degrade myself. I will not use language that is demeaning and degrading of black. Self-respect has to reach that level. It's just like self-respect has to reach a certain level. See, justice is not something that falls out of the sky. Justice is a product of self-respect. When people's level of respect for themselves and those who are like them reaches such a point that they demand justice for themselves.
All right, and with that, we've got to go. Thank you, Dr. Welsing.
Thank you, Carl.